Hi everyone, I'm Chef Susie with Escafe Online, and tonight I'm going to be making apple strudel. We have the fall season just around the corner, and I'm sure that you may have some of these ingredients that we're going to be using in the strudel left from some of your assessments. So I thought it would be nice to introduce some manufactured phyllo dough and make some apple strudel. So knowing that, I have all of my mise en place, everything I need to make the strudel on the table. I have my sanitizing solution in the container with the rag and in my spray bottle. Either one, which works for you. Make sure that you're cleaning your area before you start and after you're finished. This is super important. I know I talk about it all the time, but it is really important because safety comes first. And be sure that you have this tucked away someplace in your mise en place photo for your assignments. It's great in the background or off to the side, someplace where it's going to be out of your way, but make sure you capture it in the picture so we know that you're using good practices. So knowing that, I'm going to be putting this under the table and then we're going to get started. So for our apple strudel, it's just a few simple ingredients. I've got some sliced apples. You can use a combination of Granny Smith apples and Golden Delicious like you used in your apple pie assessment, or even some Granny Smith with some pink lady apples. Those are really nice. I have a couple of them here. They're just pink in color, and you'll find these in a grocery store. Gala and Fiji apples are also nice combinations for these things. And with the fall season coming, there's just a variety of apples that are going to be showing up in your grocery store. So try them, and you'll see that they all have different flavors to them. Some are sweeter, some are tartar, some are perfumey, and you're going to love it. So enjoy your apples this fall season. So let's get started on our apple strudel. We've got, like I said, the apple. We're going to be using a little bit of Myers rum. I like to use the Myers dark rum. This is a staple in my kitchen at home and any kitchen that I've worked in. It's just a favorite of mine. It has a really deep, kind of rich, rummy flavor, and it's a flavor that none of the other rums have. And you'll love this in your strudels, in the Baume Ceylon that we made a few weeks ago. You can use this in your Viennese butter cookies. You'll be sure to be happy with this, so keep a bottle in your kitchen for when you make your strudels and things. And we're also going to be adding just some raisins to our strudel, and you can add any kind of dried fruit. You could use your currants from your Telsey-Bun assessment. You can use dried apricots, dried cherries, dried cranberries, dried blueberries. So any of those dried fruits work really nice, and you can also add nuts to your mix too if you like nuts. Almonds, pecans, and walnuts are really nice too. We're going to be putting a little bit of cinnamon in there and a little bit of brown sugar for some sweetness and some extra flavor. The brown sugar has some molasses in it, which gives the whole thing more depth, more flavor, and more layering. And the dough that we're going to be wrapping the apples in to make the strudel is phyllo dough. It's a paper-thin dough that's made just from using water, flour, a little bit of vinegar, and a little bit of oil. And it's just stretched and it's rolled. You'll see, if you ever see it being made, a large roller on the table and two people on each side stretching it. It's an unleavened dough, and it dries out really quickly, as I'm going to be showing you. And it's really kind of similar to the puff pastry dough that we made in one of the assessments. The puff pastry layers are made by rolling the dough and folding the fat in the dough to make the layers, whereas the phyllo dough is an unleavened dough, and you stack the layers to make all the layering. It's more delicate, but you're sure to love it. And become familiar with it and start working with it a little bit. It has a Greek origin, but so many desserts are made with this phyllo dough. You can make the strudel. You can make free-form Napoleons. You can make little baskets by putting your dough squares in a little muffin pan. And there's just so many things. And the classic Greek dessert baklava is made with this phyllo dough too. But you've got to be a little careful when handling it. It's pretty fragile. It tears really easy. Don't get frustrated with it. I'll show you how to work with it. It's even going to tear a little bit on me, and you just kind of piece it together, and it's actually kind of fun. But the results are magnificent. So try it. You'll have a great time with it. It has wonderful savory applications too. You can You can make little phyllo triangles, spanakopita with a little bit of cheese and spinach, and there's just so many little hors d'oeuvres that are made with this. You can wrap asparagus in it, some nice little crunch to your asparagus spears. So check it out, you're gonna have a great time. So before we start working with our extra delicate phyllo, we're gonna make our filling first. So I have my apples, which I sliced earlier, and I put them in a little bit of lemon juice. So we're gonna go ahead and strain this out. It's nice, you can cut these apples ahead of time, and if you put them in a little bit of water with some lemon juice, they're never gonna turn brown on you. So we're just gonna let that water strain out a little bit. And I have some brown sugar. I've just got some regular brown raisins. You can use the white raisins, or like I said, any dried fruits that you like. You're gonna love them in any strudel that you make. Nuts too, if you like nuts. I've got a little bit of ground cinnamon. You can even add a little bit of clove and nutmeg if you like to. So have some fun with your strudel. Customize it to yourself. You're gonna love it. So we're gonna go ahead and put our apples in here now that they've drained. Make sure that you get all that water out, then you won't have a lot of dripping. Now I'm just kind of tossing these by hand. I'm going to add the Myers dark rum, and then we're gonna set this aside. So this is about 12 ounces of apples, 4 ounces of brown sugar, about an ounce of raisins, and an ounce of Myers dark rum, and it's plenty for one strudel.
What type of apples are you using again?
The question is, what type of apples am I using? I'm using the Granny Smith apple, which is the green apple that you'll see in the store, and I'm using the Pink Lady apple too. And I'm using half and half the Granny Smith, half Pink Lady. You can also combine the Granny Smith with the Fiji, the Gala, or whatever apples that you find that you really like in the store. The Golden Delicious are nice. We use those in a combination when we made the apple pie in one of the assessments. So have some fun with your apples, and definitely pick up some different apples that you've never tried before and try them in the store. They're loose, you could buy 1 or 2, bring them home and check them out and just experience the different flavors this fall season. You're gonna love it and you'll become so attached to them, trust me. So knowing that, let's go ahead and start with our phyllo dough. We're gonna set our filling off to the side. And we're going to be taking our phyllo dough and separating it and then brushing butter on each layer. So I just have a package of phyllo dough that I bought at the store. And you can make your own phyllo dough if you have someone to make it with you, if you'd like to have a little fun some days. But the manufacturing for this dough has been perfected in the 70s. It's perfect. It's a terrific product. When you're working in a commercial kitchen, you'll be sure to be purchasing this. And it comes in small boxes and it's frozen. So you'll find this in the freezer section of your grocery store. So just go ahead and open it up, and you're going to unroll it. It's rolled up in the package. And be sure not to open your package until you're ready to use this, because these are paper thin layers and they will dry out on you just like paper. So this is a rather small dough. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to be doing a combination of 2 pieces together to get a little bit more length so we can roll the strudel up. Typically you'll see this dough and it's a little bit more double in size, but this one is just fine. And like I said, don't unwrap this and walk away. Don't go talk on the phone or anything, because it will dry out and it will be crunchy like a piece of paper or something. So knowing that, I've got my first piece, which kind of broke a little bit, but that's okay. You can go ahead and piece it together. And what I'm going to do, since I'm piecing this together, is I'm going to build this on a piece of paper. So it's going to be a little bit easier for me to roll. So I have my first piece down. I'm going to brush this with butter. And it's kind of a little bit of a temperamental dough. You're not always going to get real. Sometimes you'll peel off nice pieces, sometimes you won't. It's just the nature of this dough. So if you see anything like this, it's very typical. Just stick with it and keep working with it. So I'm just gently putting my second layer on top. And keep in mind, this is on the inside. So if you don't get it perfect, that's okay too. No one's going to see the inside. So then I'm just brushing my melted butter. And also what you can do with this is some of your almond meal or your almond flour from those Viennese butter cookies. You can sprinkle a little bit of that in these layers or make your own flour with some hazelnuts or any kind of nuts that you have. So that adds just a little bit more depth to this. And it'll help kind of absorb a little bit of that butter too. And we're going to be doing 6 sheets of this phyllo. That's pretty typically standard to do 6 sheets.
Got a question, Chef.
And we have another question.
If I need it non-dairy, can I brush this with butter, with oil?
The question is, if you need to make this with non-dairy, can you brush it with oil? I would think so. Just be careful not to use too much so you don't get that greasy feel on your tongue. I think olive oil combination would be kind of nice because olive oil is so flavorful and it's just so delicate. And you can also use melted margarine if you can have margarine in your diet. That'll work nicely too. So I'm just brushing my layers, and I'm going to be putting one more, and then I'm going to kind of make my second row that we talked about. Since this dough is a little bit small, and I really want to have something to roll those apples up on. So I'm just going to be moving my butter out of the way, and I'm just going to be making a second row right in front of this. I'm just overlapping a little bit so it doesn't come undone. And that makes a nice larger piece for rolling up the apples. So the butter not only helps create layers, it helps stick these layers together, and it's also going to add to the flakiness the same way the butter did in your puff pastry dough that you made. It's kind of the same idea, but just a little bit different. So these interior sheets are holding together a lot better, and they're a lot easier to handle. But like I said, you don't have to worry about throwing away the broken ones. If they're just in like 2 pieces, you can go ahead and just piece them together. So now that we have all of our layering, we're going to go ahead and put our apples on one end and then just gently roll this up. And when you're finished with your puff pastry, make sure that you wrap it up really good and put it away. You can store it in the freezer or in the refrigerator if you're going to be using it in a few days. So don't leave that sitting out because it'll just dry out on you. So I have my apple, rum, sugar, and raisin mixture, which I'm going to be putting right at the end of my dough. And I don't take it all the way to the ends because I'm going to be just tucking these in a little bit. I've sliced my apples kind of thin. This way they won't poke through my dough. And does anyone have any questions? Okay, now that we have the apples on one end of the dough, I always put my apples on the end that's closest to me because I feel like I have a little bit more control rolling it. But you can easily roll it towards you too, whatever is easier for you. And I've got the dough on my parchment, so I'm going to pick up my parchment and it's going to help me get started. And these apple strudels are somewhat of a little bit of a rustic thing. They're not going to be perfectly smooth, so don't worry about any of that. And I'm just tucking my apples in a little bit, and I'm tightening this up so I have a little bit of a tighter roll. And then I'm just going to continue to roll it. It's so easy once you get started. The parchment is helpful just for getting started. And we have a question.
Could we do this with different fruits such as peaches, pears, etc.?
The question is, can this be done with different fruits such as peaches and pears? Definitely. Pears work beautifully in strudels, and peaches do too. Just be mindful that the peaches can be a little bit more juicy, so maybe do them in a little bit of a combination with a pear or an apple too. So now that I have my strudel rolled, I'm going to be putting it seam down. This way it won't split. And I'm just tucking these edges in a little bit. And I've preheated my oven to 375 degrees. You want to bake this a little bit higher because you want it to have a nice brown, crispy outside. And be sure to brush the whole strudel with butter before you put it in the oven. And tuck in those ends a little bit to keep your apples from coming out. So this is our apple strudel. It's so easy, and most of the ingredients you probably had at home, except the phyllo that you can just buy so easily, and you can store it in your freezer, which is so nice, and then just pull it out when you need it the day before, or maybe just about 4 or 5 hours before so it can thaw out completely. Don't try to unroll it when it's still frozen because you're going to get a lot of cracking then. And we have another question.
Does it matter how long apples are in the cinnamon and rum mixture?
The question is, does it matter how long the apples are in the cinnamon and rum mixture? I usually make my mix right before I start my strudel. If you get distracted, it's okay to set those aside or sit them in the refrigerator, but be careful because they might start to turn brown on you. And if a lot of liquid comes out of them, be sure not to get too much liquid in your strudel because it's just going to spread out when you bake it. And we have another question.
Have you ever pre-cooked the apples before filling? Not all the way cooked, but partially?
The question is, can you pre-cook your apples before putting them in the filling? Not cooking them all the way, but partially. That will definitely add a lot of flavor, but be mindful just to cook them a little bit. Otherwise, they're just going to get too soggy on you. I would recommend maybe sauteing them in a pan with a little bit of butter and sugar and your cinnamon, and just giving them a couple swirls in a hot pan, and that'll help bring out the flavor a little bit. And we have another question.
Could you do a berry filling?
The question is, can you do a berry filling? You can do a blueberry filling, but I would stay away from strawberries because they have so much water in them, and maybe a blueberry and raspberry filling would work nice too. But strawberries, they have so much water in them, and it would really just come out. So stick with the berries that are less concentrated with water. So knowing that, we're going to put our buttered strudel in the oven at 375 degrees for about 18 to 20 minutes until it turns nice and golden brown on top, and you can see a little bit of bubbling on the sides. So I have a strudel that I baked earlier, And I like to bake my strudels on parchment. You can even bake these on silpats if you like, but be mindful, don't cut your strudel on your silpat because you will cut through the silpat and you'll end up ruining it. So I like to bake mine on my parchment, and then I just cut these right on the tray. You can take them off and cut them too, however you like. So let's go ahead and cut our strudel, and then we'll do a little plate up. I like to cut mine on an angle. And be sure to use a serrated knife so you can gently saw through all these magnificent layers of the phyllo that you have. Kind of hold on to it a little bit, because like I said, these are more rustic looking. They're not going to be perfectly smooth, and that's the beauty of the strudel. It's like linen. It wrinkles when you wear it, and that's just the beauty of the fabric. Some desserts are like that too.
Question, Cheryl.
We have another question.
Can you sprinkle some sugar on top before baking after putting the butter on it?
The question is, can you sprinkle some sugar on top after buttering before you bake it? You sure can. It's going to add a little extra crunch. It's going to add a little extra sweetness. You can use regular granulated sugar, or even cinnamon sugar too would be really nice. Let's go ahead and pick our strudel up and get it on a plate for a little plate up that we're going to do. So I have some caramel sauce. And I'm just going to be putting this on the plate. And this is such an easy dessert to make, and I'm sure that you'll dazzle all your friends and family with this. So we're going to go ahead and powdered sugar these. This is just very typical to put a little powdered sugar on. You can cut these when they're warm, but let them set for about maybe 20 minutes when they come out of the oven, the same as your apple pie. Otherwise, it's just not going to be set together. And also, your powdered sugar will start to melt if the strudel is too hot. So when you're doing this on parchment, you just have to be a little mindful not to get any of the parchment. And this is our strudel. It's beautifully delicious, and all of your friends will be sure to love it. We're going to put a little ice cream on here. So I've got some vanilla ice cream that I made earlier. We're just going to put it on the plate, a nice scoop full of the ice cream right with the strudel. And it just kind of speaks for itself. Maybe we'll put a few berries and some raspberry sauce that we made from our assessment. You can keep that in the freezer. Just pull it out when you need it. That's what's so nice about that. It freezes so well. Maybe a little bit of mint too. Get a little bit bigger mint leaf. It's just a really easy dessert that's just simply stated. Your friends will love it. You can maybe even put a few oranges and some raspberries. And you can even drizzle a little bit of this raspberry sauce on the plate for some extra color. So this is our apple strudel for today. And we have another question.
Can you use currants?
Can you use currants? The question is, can you use currants? Yes, you sure can. We used those in one of our earlier assessments, the Chelsea buns. Currants are really nice in the apple strudel. Any dried fruit works perfectly. Nuts too. Go ahead and have some fun with your strudel and customize it to your own flavors. And we're going to be exploring some other desserts that you can make with phyllo too. I made some phyllo squares earlier. I just did my layering of my phyllo dough right on my sheet pan with my butter, but this time I put a little bit of sugar in between each layer, and I did my typical 6 layers. Then I topped the top layer with butter and sugar, and I went ahead and cut it, and now I have kind of a Napoleon shape, and we're going to be making a free-form Napoleon out of our phyllo triangle, our phyllo rectangles, and it's so easy, and you'll be sure to dazzle your friends and family with this dessert too. So let's get started on our free-form Napoleon. This is something that you're going to want to build right on your plate. So we're going to go ahead and put a little bit of caramel sauce down. And we're just going to start by putting one of our phyllo layers. And we're going to be putting a little bit of just fresh whipped cream with some vanilla in it. Just a few raspberries. It's going to add some flavor and some color and some really nice height to our Napoleon. These are so easy. You can make these with any flavor. You can flavor your whipped cream, and you can use other fruits. You can use strawberries or whatever you like. And we're going to be putting a little bit of whipped cream on top, and this is just going to help our next layer stick. And we have another question.
How long are the rectangles for the Napoleon baked for?
These little rectangles for the Napoleon, I baked these for about 12 minutes, but just keep an eye on them in your oven. You're just going to want these to be golden brown, and you can keep these in an airtight container for about a week, and they hold up really nicely. If the weather is humid, they're going to get a little bit soft, but typically they hold up for about a week, so you can make them ahead of time. If you're maybe making this for a dinner party to dazzle your guests, and then you can just build these on the day of the party right before you serve them. So we're putting some whipped cream in the middle, and that's just going to help attach this a little bit. And then we're just going to make one more layer of whipped cream. And then we're just going to put one more rectangle right on top. And this is a very easy free-form Napoleon. And we have another question.
What happens to these webcasts when Chef Susie finishes the assessment?
We had a question on the webcast. What happens to the webcast when I finish the assessments? The webcasts are all archived under the resource section, which is on the right-hand side of your screen near the bottom. So you'll be able to see them. They'll be there until you're finished with the program. So go ahead and check them out, and you can watch them as many times as you like. So knowing that, we're just going to finish up our free-form Napoleon. I'm just going to be putting a little powdered sugar on top just to dress this up a little bit. Maybe we'll top this with a little whipped cream, a raspberry, maybe a little piece of mint. And it's just so easy to make, and it's just a restaurant quality dessert that you can make right in your home, or you can make it when you have a job in a commercial kitchen too. You can impress your chef. So let's go ahead and drizzle a little bit of our raspberry sauce on our plate. Just going to add a little bit of color. I kind of like the drizzling effect along with the piping of the caramel sauce. I think it's a nice combination. Maybe a little piece of orange. And we're getting ready to wrap up, so if anyone has any questions, please get them in now.
Were the Napoleons baked on 375 too, Chef?
Yes, the question is, were the Napoleon pieces baked at 375? Yes, they were baked at the same temperature, a little bit high. They're just going to get a nice golden brown for you, and you can go ahead and build them right on the pan that you're working on, and then cut them right on the pan, as long as you're not using a Silpat, because we don't want to damage those. And then you can just pull them off when you need them. And if we don't have any questions, this is our webcast for today. Thanks for joining me. Try these desserts. They're so easy. You'll be sure to impress your family and friends, and we'll see you next week, okay? Goodbye.